Honey, I am coming home soon and I love you. The cold is quite cold here. I miss you too. See you soon. It's good to be home again. My phone is dead and nobody's coming to pick me up. My husband and my friend! You guys married while I was on traveling? The world is
wooden
wicked,
door
oh.
creaked open,
Please forgive us.
and
Sorry.
Adanna's heart stopped beating for one terrible moment. There, in her living room, the living room she had furnished with her own hands before traveling to London for work, sat her husband, Chidi. And on his lap, laughing at something he had whispered, was none other than her best friend, Amara. The woman Adanna had known since they were 6 years old, crawling through the red dust of their village together. But that was not the worst part. Two little girls ran into the room, their tiny feet pattering against the polished cement floor. The older one, who looked about 4 years old, climbed onto Chidi's other knee and called him Daddy. The younger one, maybe 2 years old, tugged at Amara's wrapper and whined, "Mommy, I'm hungry." The sound that escaped Adanna's throat was not a word. It was something between a scream and a sob, a noise of such pure agony that all three of them froze and turned toward the door. Amara's face went white as cassava flour. Chidi's mouth dropped open, and the little girl stared with big, confused eyes. For 5 long seconds, nobody moved. Then Adanna spoke, her voice so quiet it cut through the silence like a sharp cutlass. "How long?" Amara opened her mouth, but no words came out. Adanna's eyes traveled from her husband's guilty face to her best friend's trembling hands, to the 2 beautiful children who had her husband's nose and her friend's eyes. The suitcase slipped from Adanna's fingers and hit the floor with a heavy thud that echoed through the house she no longer recognized as home. What had happened during the 2 years she was abroad? How did her best friend become the wife in her house? And most importantly, what was she going to do now? Welcome, beloved family, to Echoes of the Baobab Trees. Please do me one small favor. Click that like button, it helps our stories reach more people who need to hear them. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss another tale. Let's continue the story. 3 years earlier, life had been so sweet that Adanna often pinched herself to make sure she wasn't dreaming. She was 25 years old, living in Enugu with the man she loved. Chidi was a civil engineer with kind eyes and a laugh that filled their small house with warmth. They had married in a beautiful ceremony at her father's compound in Oka, with yellow and white decorations everywhere and so much food that some villagers were still talking about it months later. Her best friend Amara had been her chief bridesmaid. Amara had cried during the vows, dabbing her eyes with a white handkerchief and squeezing Adanna's hand afterwards, whispering, "You deserve all this happiness, my sister." Adanna believed her. Why wouldn't she? Amara had been her person since childhood, the one who shared her palm wine during festivals, who held her hair back when she was sick, who walked 3 miles with her to buy the best second-hand clothes at the Ogbit market. Back then, Adanna worked as a secretary at a construction company in Enugu. It was a good job, but when an opportunity came to train in London for 2 years as an administrative manager, she knew she had to take it. The pay would be better. The experience would be valuable. It would set them up for a wonderful future. "I don't want you to go," Chidi had said the night before her departure. They were lying in their beds, the ceiling fan whirring overhead, and his arms were wrapped tightly around her waist. 2 years is too long. "It will pass like wind," Adanna had promised, kissing his forehead. "And Amara will check on you. She'll make sure you're eating well, not just buying food from the roadside." They had both laughed at that. Amara, who lived just 3 streets away, was famous for her cooking. She was always bringing over pots of bitter leaf soup and pots of jollof rice. "Your friend is a good woman," Chidi had said. "We'll be fine. Just come back to me." Those words would haunt Adanna for the rest of her life. The first year in London was hard, but Adanna was strong. She shared a small room in Peckham with 2 other Nigerian women, worked long hours at her training placement, and called home every Sunday without fail. The calls were always the same. Chidi would tell her about his work at the construction site, Amora would grab the phone and gossip about people in the neighborhood, and Adanna would laugh and feel connected to home. She comes over every evening with food, Chidi reported during one call, about 6 months after she left. I keep telling her to stop, but she says you asked her to take care of me. She's a true friend, Adanna had replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. Tell her I'll bring her a beautiful London bag when I return. Just hurry home, Chidi said. I miss you too much. Adanna missed him too. She missed the way he snored softly at night. She missed his laugh. She missed the Saturday mornings when they would walk to the market together, holding hands and bargaining for vegetables. But she also knew this sacrifice would be worth it. When she returned, she would have a better job, better money, and they could finally start the family they both wanted. They had already picked out names, Ifeanyi for a boy, Chioma for a girl. Little did she know that while she was dreaming of future children, her husband and her best friend were already building a family of their own. The changes started small, the kind of small that is easy to ignore when you are far away. Around the 1-year mark of her stay in London, Chidi's calls became shorter. He would say he was tired from work, that the network was bad, that he would call her properly on the weekend. But the weekend calls also became shorter. Amora stopped getting on the phone during their Sunday conversations. When Adanna asked about her, Chidi would say, she's busy with her own life now. You know how it is. Adanna did not know how it was. But she told herself not to be suspicious. She told herself she was being a bad friend, that Amora had every right to live her life without reporting to Adanna every week. In February of her 2nd year, she sent money home for Chidi to fix the leaking roof. He confirmed receipt and said he would handle it. When she asked for photos of the completed work, he said his phone was broken and he would send them later. The photos never came. In March, she called on Amora's birthday to wish her well. The phone rang and rang, then went to voicemail. Amora never called back. Adanna sent a message, "Happy birthday, my sister. Hope you had a wonderful day. Love you." A week later, Amora replied with 3 words, "Thank you. Love you." It was so cold, so unlike the Amora she knew, that Adanna felt a chill run down her spine even in her small, stuffy London room. But again, she pushed the feeling away. People get busy. People change. 2 years is a long time. She had no idea just how much things had truly changed. The final month before her return, Adanna could barely contain her excitement. She had completed her training with excellent marks. She had bought gifts for everyone, a designer bag for Amora, a fancy watch for Chidi, clothes for his mother, toys for the neighbor's children. Her suitcase was so full she had to sit on it to close the zipper. "I'm coming home," she shouted into her phone during her last call with Chidi. "This time next week, I'll be in your arms." "That's wonderful, my love," Chidi said. But his voice sounded strange. Flat. Like someone reading lines from a script. "Is everything okay?" Adanna asked. "Everything is fine. Just tired. Work has been stressful. Only 1 more week," she said. "Then I'll be there to take care of you properly." She expected him to say something romantic, something loving. Instead, there was a long pause. "Chidi. Are you still there?" "I'm here." "Listen, Adanna, I need to tell you something." But at that exact moment, her flatmate knocked on her door with news about their landlord. Adanna had to go. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said quickly. "We can talk properly then. Love you." She hung up before he could respond. That night, she dreamed of her homecoming. She dreamed of Chidi waiting at the airport with flowers. She dreamed of running into his arms while strangers smiled at them. She dreamed of the life they would finally begin. She never dreamed of what was actually waiting for her. The journey from London to Enugu took over 8 hours, but Adanna was too happy to feel tired. The plane landed at Akonno International Airport at 3:17 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. The sun was bright, the air was hot and humid, and the smell of Nigeria filled her nostrils like the most beautiful perfume. She wanted to cry with joy. She looked for Chidi in the arrival hall. She looked for his face among the crowd of people holding signs and waving at passengers. She looked and looked, but he was not there. Maybe he was stuck in traffic. Maybe he had parked far away. She would wait. She waited for 1 hour. Then 2. Her phone had no battery, so she couldn't call him. She asked a woman selling drinks if she could borrow a phone, but the woman's own phone was not working properly. By 5:30 p.m., Adanna was worried. By 6 p.m., she was scared. She used her last money to take a taxi to their house, promising to pay the driver more when they arrived because she did not have enough cash. The taxi dropped her at the gate at 7:15 p.m. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The gate was unlocked. The front door was slightly ajar. And through that crack, she heard laughter. Children's laughter. A woman's laughter. Her husband's laughter. Adanna pushed the door open with her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The living room looked different. New curtains. New rug. Children's toys scattered everywhere. A baby's feeding bottle on the center table. And then she saw them. Chidi was sitting on the sofa, looking older than she remembered. His face was thinner, and there were worry lines around his eyes that had not been there before. But he was laughing, genuinely laughing, at something the little girl on his lap was saying. The girl had his nose. His exact nose. Amara sat beside him, looking comfortable and relaxed in a way that suggested she had been sitting on that sofa for a very long time. She wore a simple house wrapper, no makeup, her hair pulled back. On her lap was a smaller child, a toddler with chubby cheeks and curious eyes. The toddler looked at Adanna and said, "Mommy, who is that?" The word hit Adanna like a physical blow. "Mommy." The child called Amara mommy. Amara looked up. Her face changed from relaxed to horrified in one terrible second. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Chidi followed her gaze. When he saw Adanna standing in the doorway, his face went grey. The little girl on his lap tugged his shirt and said, "Daddy, why are you looking like that?" "Daddy." The child called him Daddy. Adanna's brain could not process what her eyes were seeing. It was like a dream, a nightmare, something that could not possibly be real. This was her house. This was her husband. This was her best friend. But nothing made sense. "How long?" she whispered. The room was silent except for the confused breathing of the children. Adanna looked at the older girl again. 4 years old, maybe. 4 years would mean she was conceived about a year after Adanna left for London. The younger one, maybe 2 years old, would have been born just last year. 2 children. 2 whole children, while she was slaving away in London, sending money home, dreaming of starting a family with the man who was busy building one with someone else. Amara finally found her voice. "Adanna, please, let me explain." But what explanation could there possibly be? What words could undo what Adanna had just seen? The suitcase slipped from Adanna's fingers and crashed to the floor, the sound echoing through the room like thunder. For a long moment, nobody moved. The older girl, Chidi's daughter, Adanna realized with another stab of pain, looked at her father with confusion. "Daddy, why is that woman crying?" That woman. Adanna was now that woman in her own house. Amara stood up slowly, carefully placing the toddler on the sofa. She held her hands out in front of her like someone approaching a wild animal. "Adanna, please, just sit down and let us talk." Don't touch me, Adanna said. Her voice came out strange, like it belonged to someone else. Don't you dare touch me. Chidi finally stood up. Adanna, I tried to tell you on the phone. I tried to. You tried to tell me. Adanna's voice rose, cracking with emotion. You were going to tell me over the phone that you married my best friend and had 2 children with her. We are not married, Amora said quickly, as if that made anything better. The words hung in the air. Not married, Adanna repeated slowly. So you're just living in my house, with my husband, raising his children, and you're not even married. That's supposed to make me feel better. The toddler, scared by the loud voices, began to cry. The older girl ran to Amora and hid her face in her mother's wrapper. And Adanna looked at this scene, this perfect little family scene, and felt something inside her break into a million pieces. She had trusted these 2 people with everything. She had loved them both. And while she was alone in a foreign country, working hard and missing home, they were here, in her house, building a life together. The truth hit her like a wave of boiling water. Every shortened phone call. Every missed conversation. Every time Amora stopped answering her messages. Every excuse Chidi gave. It all made sense now. Horrible, terrible sense. Adanna looked at Chidi, at the man she had loved since she was 22 years old, and asked the question that had been burning in her mind since she walked through the door. Does your mother know? The silence that followed was louder than any answer could have been. Chidi's mother, Mama Ifeoma, had always loved Amora like a second daughter. She had often said, if Chidi had married Amora first, I would have been just as happy. At the time, everyone had laughed at the comment. Now, it felt like a prophecy. She helped with the children, Amora whispered. When the babies came, she was there. The babies. Amora kept saying the babies like they were something beautiful, something to be celebrated. And they were beautiful. They were innocent. They had done nothing wrong. But their existence meant that Adanna's marriage was a lie. Her future was a lie. Her memories of love and friendship were all lies. Adanna looked at the children one more time. Then she looked at her husband. Then she looked at her best friend. And she made a decision. Without another word, she bent down, picked up her suitcase, turned around, and walked out of the house. Behind her, she heard Chidi call her name. She heard Amora begin to cry. She heard the children asking confused questions. But she did not stop. She walked through the gate, into the darkening street, carrying nothing but her suitcase and a heart that felt like it had been ripped out of her chest. The night air was warm, but Adanna felt cold all over. She had nowhere to go. Her parents' village was hours away. Her other friends were scattered across Enugu. She had no phone battery, no money, and no idea what to do next. But one thought kept running through her mind, over and over again. If they could do this to me, what else are they capable of? Adanna walked for what felt like hours. The streets of Enugu were alive with nightlife, people buying roasted plantain from roadside sellers, Okada drivers weaving through traffic, music blaring from shops and bars. But Adanna moved through it all like a ghost, unseen, unheard. She ended up at a small hotel near the park, the kind of place where you could rent a room without too many questions. The woman at the front desk looked at her with curiosity, a woman with a nice suitcase but no phone, no bag, no husband, but she did not ask. The room was small and smelled of stale cigarette smoke, but Adanna did not care. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. Her mind replayed everything. Every phone call. Every promise. Every time she had told her London friends about her wonderful husband back home and her wonderful best friend who was taking care of him. They had probably laughed at her. They had probably sat in her house, in her bed, and laughed at how stupid she was. The tears came then, hot and heavy, and Adanna cried until she had no tears left. Around midnight, she remembered that her sister lived in Enugu. Nkechi, her younger sister, was a nurse at the teaching hospital. They were close, but Adanna had been so caught up in her own life that she hadn't visited Nkechi before traveling. She had been too busy with Chidi, too busy being a wife. Now, Chidi had shown her exactly what being a wife meant to him. She would go to Nkechi in the morning. She would tell her everything. And then what? Adanna lay on the hard hotel bed and stared at the ceiling, and for the first time in her life, she had absolutely no idea what her future held. The next morning, Adanna took a taxi to Nkechi's house. Nkechi lived in a small flat behind the hospital, a modest place with a tiny sitting room and a bedroom that barely fit her bed. When she opened the door and saw Adanna standing there with swollen eyes and a suitcase, she let out a cry. "Adanna! What happened? Why didn't you tell me you were coming home?" Adanna tried to speak, but the words got stuck in her throat. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nkechi grabbed her arm and pulled her inside. "Sit down. Breathe. Tell me." So Adanna told her. The whole story. The shortened calls. The missed messages. The house with the new curtains and children's toys. Amora sitting on her sofa. Chidi with a child on his lap. 2 little girls calling them mommy and daddy. By the time she finished, Nkechi was crying too. "That wicked woman," Nkechi whispered. "That snake. You trusted her. We all trusted her." "She was my friend," Adanna said, her voice hollow. "Since we were 6 years old. Friends don't do this." Nkechi grabbed Adanna's hands. "What are you going to do? You have to confront them properly. You have to." "I don't know what to do." Adanna's voice broke. "I don't know anything anymore." Nkechi held her sister while she cried, and for a little while, Adanna felt safe. But underneath the safety, a new feeling was growing. Anger. Cold, clear anger at the 2 people who had destroyed her life while pretending to love her. And with that anger came a question: what was she going to do about it? 2 days passed before Adanna saw Chidi again. He found her at Nkechi's flat, banging on the door like a man possessed. When Nkechi opened it, he pushed past her and fell to his knees in front of Adanna. "Please," he begged. "Please let me explain." Adanna looked at him, this man she had loved, this man she had trusted, and felt nothing but disgust. "Explain what?" she asked coldly. "Explain how you slept with my best friend a year after I left. Explain how you created 2 children while I was working to build our future. Explain how you let me send money to fix a roof while you were using that money to feed your other family." Chidi's face crumpled. "It wasn't like that. It happened once. Just once. I was lonely and she was there and we drank too much palm wine and that one time gave you 2 children." Adanna's voice dripped with sarcasm. "You must be very powerful, Chidi." He had the decency to look ashamed. "After the first time, we tried to stop. But then she was pregnant, and I couldn't abandon her. And then it just became normal. She was there. You weren't." The words hit Adanna like stones. She wasn't there. She was working. For them. For their future. "So you chose her," Adanna said quietly. "You chose my best friend over me." "I chose the situation I was in," Chidi said. "I never stopped loving you. I was going to tell you when you came back. I was going to ask you to forgive me." "Forgive you?" Adanna laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want me to forgive you for replacing me with my best friend? For giving her the children that were supposed to be mine? For letting her live in my house and wear my clothes and sleep in my bed?" Chidi had no answer. Nkechi stepped forward. "You should leave now. My sister has nothing more to say to you." But Adanna held up her hand. "Wait. I have one question. She looked directly into Chidi's eyes. Do you love her? The silence stretched between them. Chidi opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I care about her. She's the mother of my children. That's not what I asked. Adanna's voice was like ice. Do you love her? Another long pause. Then, so quietly she almost didn't hear it, yes. The word destroyed the last tiny piece of hope Adanna had been holding onto. She stood up, walked to the door, and opened it wide. Get out of my sight. And tell Amara that I will deal with her when I am ready. Chidi stumbled to his feet. Adanna, please. Get out. He left. And Adanna closed the door, leaned against it, and felt the anger inside her grow into something she had never felt before. Something dangerous. Something that would not rest until justice was served. The next morning, Adanna woke up with a plan. A plan so bold, so unexpected, that even Kechi gasped when she heard it. But before she could put that plan into action, there was a knock at the door that would change everything once again. Adanna sat on the hard hotel bed, staring at the wall, when a loud knock shattered the silence. Bang! 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 She froze. No one knew she was here. No one. Bang! 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 Slowly, she crept to the door and peered through the small gap. Her heart nearly stopped. Outside stood a police officer, his uniform crisp, his face stern. Behind him, barely visible in the dim hallway light, stood Chidi, his eyes red, his clothes rumpled, his hands trembling at his sides. Open the door, madam, the officer commanded. We need to talk. Adanna's hand shook as she unlocked the door. The officer stepped inside, but Chidi remained in the hallway, his face a mixture of fear and desperation. Madam Adanna, the officer asked. She nodded. There has been an incident at your house. Your husband here reported it. We need you to come with us. Adanna's blood ran cold. What incident? What happened? The officer glanced at Chidi, then back at Adanna. Your friend, the woman Amora, she is missing. And her 2 children are gone as well. The words hung in the air like poison. Missing? Adanna whispered. What do you mean, missing? Chidi stepped forward, his voice cracking. After you left last night, Amara was crying. She would not stop crying. I went to check on the children, and his voice broke. They were gone. All 3 of them. Their beds were empty. The window at the back of the house was wide open. Adanna's mind raced. Amora took the children and ran. But where? And why now? When did this happen? She asked. Sometime in the night, Chidi said. I looked everywhere. I called everyone. No one has seen them. The officer cleared his throat. Madam, we need to ask you some questions. When was the last time you saw Amora and the children? Adanna opened her mouth to answer, but before she could speak, her phone, now charging on the nightstand, lit up with a message. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She read the words once. Twice. 3 times. Her face went pale as white chalk. What is it? The officer asked. Who is that message from? Adanna looked up, her eyes wide with shock and something else, fear. It's from Amora, she whispered. She says she is sorry. She says she cannot live with what she did. And she says. Adanna's voice faltered. Says what? Chidi demanded, pushing into the room. Adanna held up the phone, her hand shaking violently. She says she is taking the children to the bridge. The old bridge over the river. And she says. Adanna swallowed hard. She says goodbye. Chidi let out a sound, half scream, half sob, and ran. The officer grabbed his radio, shouting for backup. But Adanna stood frozen, staring at the message, her mind spinning with one terrible question. Was this real? Or was this something else entirely? And in that moment, none of them noticed the second message that arrived just seconds later, a message that would change everything they thought they knew. A message that read, "I know what you did, Adanna. And I will tell everyone." The screen went black. Adanna looked up at the officer, her face a mask of confusion and terror. "I did not do anything," she whispered. "I swear I did not do anything." But the way the officer was looking at her, the suspicion in his eyes, told her that the nightmare was far, far from over. Watch out for part 2. Kindly leave us a like and subscribe to our channel.